Okay, so if you guys are starting this second video, it means that you guys have already done practice 3 and practice 4 and you feel like you are ready to kind of put it all together. So what I've done is down here at the bottom, I've given us 2 examples where we are actually going to have to put it all together. So I've done the steps over here off to the side, and what I want you to do is kind of decide. So it says the first step is to distribute if you see parentheses. Again, we're always going to distribute first if we see parentheses. Then the second step is going to be to combine like terms. And then the third step is going to be evaluate if asked. Make sure that you do not evaluate first. That is not the best way to work the problem. So let's do example 5. Again, we do see parentheses. There are 2 sets of them, so we are going to distribute first. Remembering what we talked about last time, that if there isn't a coefficient, then the coefficient is 1, and that we've got to watch our signs, that our signs go with our numbers. So on this problem, I am going to go ahead and highlight real quickly all these negatives, just as a reminder so that we remember that we need to make sure that we include those signs. So here is my 3 times my x. Well, again, that's a 3 times a 1x. So 3 times 1 is 3, and then I put my x down. Then this is 3 times negative 4, which we had earlier. So if you notice, it looks a lot like this. So 3 times negative 4 gives me a negative 12. And then I'm ending with that set of parentheses. So then from here, okay, I'm done. I've taken the number outside and multiplied it times everything inside. Now I'm going to do the same thing here. But remember, I have to do it with a negative 2. This sign stays with this number. So when I'm multiplying, this is negative 2 times positive 8, which would be a minus 16. And again, guys, I'm doing it in my head, but if you need to use a calculator, please do. And then this is a negative 2 times a negative 1. Because again, there's not a coefficient there, so this is a 1. So negative 2 times negative 1 would be positive 2. And then it has an x, so I have to bring the x with it. So there's my first step. This was step 1. Which was to distribute to remove the parentheses. The next step says that we're supposed to combine like terms, so let's go ahead and get our colors out. So here I've got 3x going with plus 2x, and again we box the signs because the signs go with the numbers. And then these are both whole numbers or constants, and so we're going to put those together. So then I would do step 2. So I'm going to make my groups. So here's my pink group, 3x plus 2x. And my green group is negative 12 minus 16. So I would do this, 3x plus 2x. Well, 3 plus 2 is 5. So I have a 5x. And then if I do this, negative 12 minus 16. Okay, again, that's negative 12 minus 16. I would get a negative 28. So this is my step 2, and then this would be my solution. So I distributed here to get rid of the parentheses to get this. Then I combined my like terms to get my simplified answer. And it doesn't ask me to evaluate yet. So let's do another one. Let's look at example 6. Okay, we're going to do the same thing. So step 1 says to distribute if you see parentheses. Well, we see parentheses. So I'm going to do this times this, and this times this, remembering that there is an imaginary 1 right here. So 5 times 2a is 10a. And then 5 times positive 1b is positive 5b. And then here, again, there's one of those lovely little negative signs. Maybe I should have highlighted them so that we don't forget. So this time we're going to distribute the negative 2. So negative 2 times 3a would be minus 6a. And then a negative 2 times a negative 5 would be a positive 10. And then the letter is a B because this one had the B. So there's my step 1. I distributed. Now it's time to combine like terms. So I have a 10a and a negative 6a. And then I have a positive 5b and a positive 10b. Again, remembering that I always include the signs whenever I'm moving them around. So now if I make a group of my pinks, I have 10a minus 6a, and my second group is 5b plus 10b. So now I'm ready to actually go ahead and combine them. 10 minus 6 is 4a, and 5b plus 10b is positive 15b. And again, remember, this sign comes from whether or not this number comes out positive or negative. 5 plus 10 comes out to be 15, therefore this is a positive response. And again, this doesn't say anything, okay? So we're not supposed to evaluate, so this is my solution, so there is no step 3. All right, so let me do one more with you, and then I'm gonna have you guys do them on your own. So if you'll flip over onto the back of your paper. Notice I've redone the steps for you, but this time there isn't a blank. So you don't actually have to fill in the word parentheses. I've got it there for you. You write on a piece of paper because it always turns out better that way. Okay, so example 7. Again, we see parentheses, so we're going to distribute. And this time I do have a negative here and a negative here. So as I go to start the problem, I would distribute the 4 because side by side means multiplied. So I've got a number right beside the parentheses. So 4 times 5x would be 20x. And then 4 times positive 1 would be positive 4. And then I go to do this, and I notice there's not a number there. There's just a minus sign. Well, again, remember, if there's not a coefficient there, it's always 1. So there's an imaginary 1 that is sitting here that we're actually going to multiply by. So I've got a negative 1. Again, make sure you include that sign. A negative 1 times 4 would be minus 4. And this one has an x, so I put an x. And then negative 1 times negative 3, do not lose the sign of this number, comes out to be a positive 3. So there's my step 1. So then step 2 is to start to make our groups. So I have 20x and negative 4x. And then I have positive 4 and positive 3. So if I go to make my groups, I've got a pink group and a green group. So I have 20x and minus 4x. Again, signs travel with numbers. And then I have a positive 4 and a positive 3. So there's my groups for combining the like terms, and now I'm ready to actually put them together. So 20x minus 4x would be 16x. and 4 plus 3 comes out to 7, and it's a positive 7, so I would put plus 7. And then this would be my answer because, again, on these types of problems, it has not asked me to evaluate. All right, good. So I've left 8, 9, and 10 for you guys to do. So let's jump down to where it says example 11 and 12, and we are going to do these two together. Again, let me go ahead and fold my paper so that you guys can see what we're writing. There we go. So the only difference on 11 and 12 is that now it actually does say evaluate if x is negative 2.2 and y is 4.6. So we are still going to follow our steps, distribute if you see parentheses, combine like terms, but now we are going to evaluate because we've got that information. So first things first, we're still going to multiply to remove parentheses. Side by side means multiplied. So negative 2, again, we take the whole number times 3 would be negative 6, and it has an x, so we put an x. Negative 2 times negative y. Again, if there's not a number in the front, we know that the coefficient is 1, so there's an imaginary 1 here. So negative 2 times negative 1 makes positive 2. And then this one has a y, so we put a y. And then this is a positive 5, so positive 5 times 2x would be positive 10x. And then a positive 5 times just a y, well, remember that's a 1. So this would be plus 5y. And so now we'd be ready to combine our like terms. So here is negative 6x, positive 10x, and then positive 2y with positive 5y. So now we're ready to do our groups. So negative 6x plus 10x, and then positive 2y plus 5y. So negative 6 plus 10 would give me 4x. And then 2y plus 5y would be 7y. And usually we would be done, except for it says evaluate if x is negative 2.2 and y is 4.6. So now I'm going to do step 3, which is to evaluate. And remember, evaluate means we need a numerical answer. So we need to plug in or substitute x is negative 2.2 and y is 4.6. So we would say 4, and then remember it's multiplied because they're side by side, so we leave parentheses for x, plus 7, and we leave a parenthesis for y, and then we fill in. So x is negative 2.2, and then y is 4.6. And now this is calculator ready. Now, I didn't bring an Inspire home this time, so I am just going to type it in onto this one. So 4, parentheses, negative 2.2, close, plus 7, parentheses, 4.6, close, and then press enter, and we get 23.4. So our solution is 23.4. So we have two answers. We have this, which is our answer to simplify. And then there's this, which is the answer for the evaluate part. Please know that I'm going to be looking for both, so make sure that you are simplifying before you try to evaluate. So let's look at one more. And the reason I wanted to do this one with you is because a lot of you would freak out if you saw the fractions. But when we start to work this one out, you will notice that it actually gets pretty simple. So let's start with our normal steps. I'm going to highlight those negatives so that I don't forget about them and that I multiply correctly and that I distribute correctly. And so then I'm going to start to multiply. 1/4 of 12. If you're not sure, that is like dividing by 4, but I could always do 1/4, and again, different buttons in the Inspire, but times 12, and it comes out to be 3. So this would be 3m, and again, that's because this has an m, and then I have 1/4 plus 2n. Oh, that's going to be ugly. Let's just change it. Let's make it a 12n. Just for posterity, because that way it won't be super ugly. So now I'm going to do 1/4, same thing, times 12, and I'm going to get 3n. So plus 3n. Good. Now I have this negative 1/5. That's the next number to distribute. So I'm doing negative 1/5 times 5. So negative 1/5 times 5 is minus 1. So I would do minus 1m. And then negative 1/5 times negative 25 is 5. And it comes out positive, so this is going to be a plus. So plus 5n. So even though it started with big ugly fractions in it, once we multiplied through, we were able to get rid of those fractions. But even if you were to get a fraction answer in here, we have a calculator, so it's not that hard. So now we're ready to combine our like terms. So I've got a 3m and a minus 1m. And then I've got a plus 3n and a plus 5n. So let's do our groups. So 3m minus 1m, and then our green group is positive 3n plus 5n. So 3 minus 1 is 2. 3 plus 5 is 8. And we still keep our variables. So then this is one of our answers. Remember, this is our simplify answer, because we have gone all the way through and we've combined like terms. And now we're ready to evaluate if m is 5 and n is negative 10. So side by side means multiplied. So 2, leave a space for m, plus 8, leave a space for n. And then m is 5, n is negative 10, and now we are calculator ready. So 2 parentheses 5 plus 8 parentheses negative 10, press enter, and my answer is negative 70. So again, this is the evaluate answer. Good. So I've left 13 and 14 for you to do, and then at the bottom is kind of just a review. How do you know when to distribute before you combine like terms? And then this talks about finding the area, and I've given you a hint that area is length times width. So obviously I think it looks like we're going to multiply this, the length, times this, the width. And again, it's going to be a simplify problem, not an evaluate problem. So I should get an answer with a variable in it. Remember, if you have any questions, just ask.